Have you ever stopped to think about how your own history, maybe your childhood, or even just the economy you grew up in, actually shapes how you feel about money? It's way more than just numbers in an account, right? Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. The book is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Came out in 2020, really made some waves. And look, this isn't about fancy financial models or, predicting the next market crash. Nope. Our mission today is really to crack open the human side of it all, the emotional, sometimes kind of messy behavioral stuff around managing money. We want to give you a new way, maybe, to look at your own financial life. Housel's main idea, it's almost like revolutionary because it's so simple. He says, doing well with money. It has surprisingly little to do with how smart you are or how much finance jargon you know. It's almost entirely about how you behave. So we're going to unpack some of those big money myths today, give you a shortcut to understanding these often surprising lessons about wealth and your relationship with it.
Yeah, and what's really great about Housel's approach is how he just shifts the whole conversation, away from just technical investing tips and complex strategies. He really zeroes in on the behaviors, the mental models, the stuff that's deeply ingrained in all of us. It's such a fresh perspective. And the book itself, with those 19 short chapters, it makes it really accessible. Anyone can pick it up and start understanding the emotional side of money.
Okay, so let's jump into one of his big foundational ideas. He calls it no one's crazy.
Hmm.
Basically, he's arguing that we all see money differently, and those views are totally shaped by our unique lives, our experiences. I mean, think about it. Someone who lived through, say, the Great Depression versus someone who grew up during a huge economic boom.
Totally different perspectives on risk. Yeah.
Exactly. Or even the dot-com bust or 2008. It's not just rich versus poor. It's your personal timeline.
That's such a key insight, because we often assume our way of thinking about money is the only logical way. And then we get frustrated when other people make decisions that seem, well, irrational to us.
Right. Why would they do that?
Yeah. Housel forces us to kind of step back from that judgment. It really underlines that personal finance is just that intensely personal. There's no one-size-fits-all. Your decisions have to make sense for your values, your history, your context.
That makes so much sense. So it's less about finding the absolute smartest mathematical answer.
And more about finding what's sustainable for you, what you can stick with.
Okay, connecting that idea then to another really powerful concept Housel explores, luck and risk. He really drives home this point that so much of success and failure just comes down to factors outside our control. He uses that amazing Bill Gates example.
Oh, yeah, the school with the computer in 1968.
Exactly. Like, how incredibly lucky was that? One of the only schools in the world with one.
Pure chance, really.
And that bit of luck obviously played a massive role in his journey. The lesson being, we shouldn't be so quick to judge outcomes good or bad without acknowledging how much luck and risk are involved.
And it makes you think, doesn't it? How much do we really factor in that randomness? Risk can just torpedo the best laid plans. It's not about making excuses, but about being realistic, building in some resilience, because things will go sideways sometimes.
And I wonder if recognizing that lack of control is part of why, even when people do succeed, they can fall into that trap of feeling like it's never enough. Housel tells some really sobering stories about wealthy people who lost it all chasing more, just couldn't stop.
Yeah, those are cautionary tales for sure.
He has that quote, it really stuck with me. The hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. That just perfectly captures how comparing ourselves to others fuels this endless cycle of dissatisfaction. The goalposts always shift.
Absolutely. And it shows so clearly how emotions, greed, insecurity, maybe even envy aren't just feelings. They actively drive spending and investing. It really reinforces that behavioral piece. It's often an internal battle, right?
Definitely.
And one of the book's core insights is just how much our emotions are in the driver's seat when it comes to money.
Okay, so speaking of things that seem simple but have huge impact, let's talk confounding compounding, the power of compound interest. We hear about it, but Housel argues it's massively underrated.
Truly.
He uses Warren Buffett as the prime example. Yes, Buffett's a brilliant investor, no doubt, but a huge chunk of his wealth, it comes down to time, the sheer length of time he's been investing, over 75 years.
Incredible consistency.
Right. The lesson is stark. Time can often be way more powerful than trying to achieve super high short-term returns. Patience pays.
And the practical takeaway there is just enormous. It's about patience, consistency, forming good habits. You don't have to be the smartest person finding the next big thing. Just Stay invested. Let time work for you.
It's almost liberating, isn't it? You don't need to be a genius.
Exactly. Even small, regular contributions over a long time horizon can achieve amazing results, often better than trying to time the market perfectly.
So if time and patience are key, it brings up an interesting point Housel makes. The difference between getting wealthy and staying wealthy. Are they the same skills? He argues, not really.
Right.
Getting wealthy often involves taking risks, maybe being optimistic, putting yourself out there. But staying wealthy, that requires something different. Humility, maybe? Frugality?
And managing those emotions, we talked about fear when markets drop, greed when they soar.
It's like needing a different mindset entirely.
Yeah.
Almost a reversal.
It really is. And it hammers home that idea again. Financial success isn't just about IQ points, it's about your habits, your temperament, your behavior over the long haul. Behavior wins.
And that ties into another fascinating concept. Tails. You win.
Ah, yeah, the outlier effect.
Exactly. Housel explains that most results, especially in things like investing or venture capital, come from a tiny number of massive successes, the tail events. So what does that mean for us? Well, it means successful people or successful portfolios often have a lot of things that don't work out. Lots of small failures or mediocre results.
But those few big wins cover everything else.
Right. It kind of gives you permission to fail, or at least to know that not everything needs to be a home run. A few big successes can make all the difference.
It's a numbers game, in a way, understanding distributions.
So all this strategizing, saving, compounding, what's the ultimate goal? What does money actually buy us? Housel's take is really profound here. He talks about freedom.
Control over your time.
Yes. He challenges that common idea that wealth is about luxury goods, fancy cars, big houses.
The stuff you see.
Right. He argues the greatest value of money is giving you control over your own time. Independence. That's true wealth.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, it's about flexibility, having options, being resilient when life throws curveballs.
Which it always does.
Always. So money buys that buffer, that ability to navigate surprises. It's empowering your life, not just accumulating possessions. That's real financial peace of mind.
Which leads perfectly into another idea I found really reasonable. He calls it reasonable rational. He basically says, forget trying to make perfectly mathematically rational financial decisions all the time.
Because we're human, not robots.
Exactly. What's much more important is making decisions that are reasonable for you. Decisions you can actually stick with emotionally, especially when things get rocky, like in a market downturn.
It challenges that whole homo economicus idea from textbooks, doesn't it? The perfectly rational actor.
Totally.
So if we're not aiming for pure rationality, what are we acknowledging? We're acknowledging fear, greed, insecurity, pride, all these emotions that massively influence our choices. That's why a reasonable plan, one that accounts for your human tendencies, is often far more sustainable and ultimately more successful than a perfectly rational one you abandon at the first sign of trouble.
You need a system you can actually live with.
Precisely. Build it for your actual self, not some idealized version.
Okay, and the last big one, maybe my favorite. Wealth is what you don't see. Housel makes this brilliant point. When you see someone driving a flashy car or living in a mansion, what you're seeing is their spending.
Not necessarily their wealth.
Right. You see the money they no longer have. Real wealth, he argues, is often invisible. It's the money that hasn't been spent. It's the savings, the investments working quietly behind the scenes.
It cuts right through that cultural pressure to look rich.
Doesn't it? The lesson is so powerful. Stop trying to look rich. Focus on being rich, which means building that unseen wealth.
And he adds a great point there, too. You don't even need a specific reason to save for every single dollar. Saving itself is the goal initially. It builds that buffer, creates flexibility, gives you options, makes you resilient. It's preparing for an unpredictable future.
So valuable. Okay, so let's kind of pull this all together. The big psychological takeaways from Housel seem clear. Financial success. It's way more about your behavior, your habits, your mindset than just raw intelligence or knowledge.
Absolutely.
Our emotions play a huge role in driving decisions. And maybe most crucially, personal finance is deeply, fundamentally personal. No single right way.
That sums it up beautifully.
So, the psychology of money, honestly, it feels like a must-read. For anyone wanting a better, maybe healthier long-term relationship with their money. It really teaches that how you think is more important than what you know. Super useful if you're just starting out, maybe if you know you tend to make emotional money decisions, or really anyone just looking for more financial peace of mind. Remember that key line. Doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave.
And maybe a final thought for everyone listening to consider. If success with money really is mostly about behavior, what specific behaviors or maybe emotional patterns do you recognize in your own financial life? And think about this. How might changing just one of those patterns consciously lead you toward greater independence and peace of mind?
That's a really powerful question to reflect on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the human side of wealth. We hope it sparks some valuable thinking for you.